Welcome. Welcome to my series, Becoming Superhuman, episode 4, How Not to Be Afraid of Fear. This is good. This is coming from something I came up with a while ago, actually, which is like there's a fear that underpins all fear, because you're afraid of many things. It's natural. But there is a fear that we've sort of put on top of that in the modern world, which is the fear of being afraid. It's like scary to feel fear. And so that's what we're going to be exploring today, is how not to be afraid of fear. How do you do that? How do you change your relationship to fear so it's no longer scary? And there's so many nuances to this. Things people just don't necessarily think about, or if they understand it intellectually, they don't embody it. So we're going to be exploring that today. So the how not to be afraid of fear. This is going to be good. And so for those of you interested in my Becoming Superhuman program, which begins next year, you can send me a private message and I'll send you those details when they're ready. Mag, welcome. Welcome indeed. It's been a while. So this is a good one. You've joined a very good one. So how not to be afraid of fear. Fear, it gets a bad rap. You know, people have a very strange relationship to it. When it's been there since we've been around 4 billion years of evolution on this planet. And in that time, fear has evolved perfectly. And it's been working no problem, across the entire planet. It's the reason why we're here is because we've had a very healthy relationship to fear. It's why we didn't get eaten by lots of different animals, why we learned how to overcome and to work together and to create this incredible world that has me talking to you, from a satellite being beamed around. And so it's, fear itself, it doesn't have any biases, right? It doesn't have any ulterior motives. Fear is there to support us, and yet it doesn't seem to operate very well. Someone who used to have severe anxiety, severe anxiety for like decades, really, I understand deeply what it's like to have that bad relationship to fear, and to feel so scared that I couldn't even open the door, or that I couldn't even open the door to friends, at one point, because it was so bad. And yet, without it, I also wouldn't have transcended and created everything that I have up to this moment. The past 5 years has been incredible transformation, and that's directly related to fear itself and the relationship I've developed to it. So it's like, what's the problem with fear? Why is it such a big deal for us? Well, obviously on a primal level, it works beautifully. I was watching this program a little while ago, and it had this octopus. And so it's at the bottom of the sea, minding its own business, enjoying itself. Then suddenly, this shark comes over, smells it obviously for a couple of miles away. It wants to eat this octopus. Octopus is terrified, grabs up all these shells, puts it over itself, calls itself up into like a tiny ball, looks like a weird kind of statue of some kind. And the shark comes up, and obviously its scent is perfect, so it knows it's there. But it's like it's also blinded by whatever it can see, and it's like tapping it, and it doesn't know what's going on with this weird thing. And then what the octopus does is it throws the shells, and it shoots off in the other direction. So the shark is left looking at these shells, kind of like weirded out. The octopus has escaped, and it's long gone, right? So that's fear in action, right? What it's supposed to do. I'm about to be eaten. Quick, do what I need to do. Get the hell out of here. Perfect. It would then go off about its business, right? Now, for us, of course, it would have been the same. It would have been just working equally as well thousands of years ago, before we developed this beautiful prefrontal cortex, this thing that makes us go I, and the thing that makes us be aware of ourselves and be able to look inwards, right? That's kind of what part of the problem is, because on top of this very natural fear response, we now have imagination. So that we get the fear response as normal to new environments, to things that we don't know about. Bang, it's afraid. Then we get our imagination going crazy, remembering everything we've ever done before, everything that could possibly happen in the future, and suddenly we get terrified. It's like my friends who are knocking at the door somehow have been turned into evil monsters, right? To me, like giant, scary people who are trying to get me. I mean, I didn't think of it like really monsters, but proportionately, the fact that I couldn't even open the door to them and I just wanted them to go away and I was huddled up, right? It's like there was a disproportionate reaction to a little bit of nerves about my friends coming into my home. You know, and there are many reasons why those feelings were there, but the reality is it was the imagination on top of the fear that's the problem, not the fear itself. Now, when it comes to nature and fear, it's very cool. So on the title of this, in the description, I put, you don't want to be losing your tail, you know, unless you really have to, right? And that came because as I'm researching more into this, I discovered that there's been lots of studies done on these lizards. So there are lizards that when they're attacked, they will lose either part or all of their tail so they can escape. So they lose part of themselves to get the hell out of there, right? That's what they've evolved to do. So they get to live another day, they get to live their life and procreate and all the rest of it, right? So it works really well for that. But there's a high cost to doing that, because the ones that lose their tail, well, they move slower. They don't have the same abilities with the tail. They lose their status actually in their social rank. So they lose status, and as a result of all that, they lose attractiveness to a mate. So their potential for survival and procreation is actually much reduced by losing that tail. So it's not a good thing for them to do that. So it needs to be for real. And so and the cool thing is like how it evolved that way. So there've been lots of studies done, like researching into lizards in different areas, and what they've found is the ones that have a higher percentage of lizards that lose their tails are in areas where there are higher instances of venomous snakes, like vipers, because it makes sense when you think about it. For when a snake bites, the venom goes into the bloodstream, and then of course the poison stops the lizard, and then it can eat it. So it doesn't actually need to hold on to it as such. It can just do a quick bite. So of course over years it's gone, that's no good. So it learnt to detach its tail, so the poison would stay in the tail, it would get the hell away. And they've also looked at lizards of the same species that have been on an island where there are no venomous snakes. They have lost the ability to lose their tail. So it's where there's more venom, more danger, they lose their tail. Makes sense. When there's less danger, they don't, and that's the way it's been. So it works beautifully, right? That fear response protects them and saves them from death from poison. Makes perfect sense. Now, imagine if they had an imagination like ours. So they actually freaked out about a possibility of a snake, shed their tail and got away. Imagine they did that. There's no actual snake, they just imagined the snake. Suddenly, they're without a tail. They've lost their social rank. They are unable to get a mate and to procreate in that way. They're ostracized. For what? Because of a fear of a potential snake, not because of a real snake. And so for them, the only way they're going to do that is if something latches onto them, right? The pressure creates the response. Now, with us, when it comes to re-educating ourselves around fear, we need to do a similar kind of thing. Because the reality was, when I was full of anxiety and I wasn't going out, well, similar thing was occurring, right? My social rank was non-existent. Obviously wasn't able to go out with anybody or have any girlfriends or anything. That was non-existent. So the similar consequences occurred of my loss of social rank, my loss of my future, and all these things. And it caused a whole bunch of stuff, depression, and all kinds of good stuff that happens, when you're living through fear and not using it in the correct way. So instead of that, it's like, be aware of the circumstances that you're in. What is the context proportionate to your fear response? If, for instance, you're frightened of speaking up at work, as an example, so you're in a meeting and you've got something that's worth saying, but you hold back and you're scared because what if you look stupid? What if all this happens? And you feel gripped by fear. That is not necessarily proportionate to the potential consequences, right? The consequences are you say something a little bit silly, someone disagrees with you, and then you learn something about maybe you were wrong. And then you have to learn something, you get better, and maybe next time you say something that's a bit more relevant, as an example. Or, of course, you could say something that's very relevant, very helpful, and actually makes a difference to the company as well. So it's like, be aware of the context for your fear response. Is it appropriate? Because unless there's a real immediate danger occurring, there's no reason for you to rush, for you to panic, and all these things. And so, as a very simple thing, when you're just be aware of the context and just choose to stay there a little bit longer. Don't follow the urgency. Urgency can be the red flag. Urgency can be the sign to not follow through on what the fear wants you to do. And that can be a way of retraining yourself and transforming your relationship to fear in this way. Is this making sense, by the way? Does this make sense to you when you hear it in this way? And can you see how it's relevant for your life? Post, let me know. It's useful to know what's resonating with you. Even if you watch this on the replay, right? It's important. If you've got any questions about it, by the way, post them. Because, so other people will have the same question and it will be valuable to them, and also helps me communicate this in a better way too by answering your questions. So feel free to ask anything as it occurs to you. Now, for those of you who know about my Becoming Superhuman training next year, it's very cool, and I'm actually building something that's beyond extraordinary, actually, from what I imagined it would be, and I'm opening up applications very soon. So if you are interested in that, send me a private message. I'm collecting details of people, and then when it's ready, I'm going to send it through, and you can look at it and decide if you want to apply. It's going to be epic. So fear itself, you cannot. Oh, hi Nima. You cannot run away from fear anyway. It's like we almost lie to ourselves. It's kind of a lie where we're like, I'm scared of asking that girl out, for instance, right? I'm scared of approaching. I can see this girl I really like, and I'm really terrified of going up to her. So I can feel it, I can feel the fear building here. Me not going up to her doesn't get rid of the fear, does it? It's not like I'm over here and the fear's gone and I'm like just relaxed and life's good, really wanted to go talk to her, but I'm over here and fear's wonderful. I feel great. Doesn't happen that way. You tend to carry it with you because, really the fear isn't with her, is it? The fear is within us, If there's anyone in your life that you need to have a serious conversation with and you haven't, you're avoiding it. The avoiding of it doesn't take away the fear of it, does it? This is a good question for you. I asked this actually at the talk I did the other day on Life Beyond Your Fear, and I think it's a good one. So, when did you last avoid having a difficult conversation with someone, and you put it off, and then when it came to happen, it was so much better? When did that happen? When did it happen that you put it off, and you were like so relieved? You're like, yes, do you know what? I'm really glad I waited. I'm so glad I waited all those weeks and months, or maybe even years. I was so glad of that I went through all that turmoil, of all that pain for so long before I actually just got the courage up to have that conversation. Because the truth is, normally what happens is that it builds up to the point where the feeling builds up a pressure inside, and then we blurt out stuff in the wrong way. It's very common that a lot of miscommunication and a lot of problems in relationships happen not because of what you're saying is a problem, but because you don't say it early enough. Fear grows; it doesn't get smaller, and this is important actually. It's important to be aware of this. The fear will grow because you have a natural fear response, which is, hey, pay attention to something, and here's some energy also to go deal with it. So it could be as small as a message you've got to respond to. It could be a really difficult conversation with a loved one. It could be going for that job interview. It could be anything at all. That doesn't really matter. It could be public speaking, right? It could be any of those things. The fear comes in to go bang, attention, bang, energy. There you go. Do what you need to do. But if you don't do it, then it's not like the thing's gone away. Then you train your system goes, it's not important enough to you yet. Okay, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to crank this up for you. So the next time it comes into your awareness, bang! It's if you can feel it, right? I used to call mine excruciating pain. When I used to be preparing for talks years ago, I was like, bang! It's like excruciating pain is what it felt like to me. And it's like, well, it's going to keep getting bigger because it wants you to deal with it because it's important to you. And the way it can communicate it is through a strong feeling. That's just the way it works. And if you avoid it, you may get away with it for a while. You may be able to drown it out with alcohol, cigarettes, with keeping busy. But the reality is you're carrying it with you, and it's going to come and hit you again and again and again, growing inside until eventually something's going to happen. It has to leak out. I mean, that's what happened with me with panic attacks. You know, when I used to, you know, it got so bad. I remember there was a girl that I was attracted to, and I could see her pull in the car park, like where I was, and just seeing her pull in the car park, I could feel like the water like getting in my throat. You know, the sign I'm going to be sick. I'm like, oh, and I had to run off and be physically sick because someone I was attracted to drove into a car park about 3/4 of a mile away. So that's what happens. It builds. So if you don't address the fear immediately, do it at the beginning, it's only going to get bigger. So there's no avoiding it. You know, you can lie to yourself, you can put it off, but you cannot escape yourself. So instead of that, how about you decide to change your relationship to it completely, to utilize the opportunities to train yourself. You know, as I shared the other day, which is quite useful, someone marked this out, so that's why I want to share it here. It's like, we know that going to the gym or doing physical exercise and training actually grows our muscles and we get stronger physically. We know this, it's obvious, right? Whether you know the mechanism doing it or not is irrelevant. You know that if you exercise regularly, if you run regularly, you get fitter, you get stronger, you become more capable in the thing that you're training. And yet we don't seem to realize, or at least we forget, that we can apply this to fear and to everything else too. Just as you can train yourself to be physically stronger, you can train yourself to be psychologically and emotionally stronger too by doing this, by making a choice. So very simply, I like to boil things down into binary choices. Of course, there's more complexity to it, but I like to put it into binary because it just makes it very useful. So essentially, you have two choices when you get scared of something you've got to do. You can either feel the fear intensely, like really intensely, and you feel it burning strong, but you do what you address it, you deal with the situation. So you feel it strong, and then you accomplish something by doing it, okay? And the feeling will change and grow and disappear. Or you avoid the situation, that you take the intensity will reduce, but you've got a core nucleus of that fear with you. And you carry that with you every day, and you carry that with you into the next situation that's similar. And you're training yourself essentially to avoid that, and then you become a person that avoids things, and you become a person that lets the fear slowly build inside, creating this incredible pressure within that makes sometimes even the most simplest of tasks seem like a lot. You know, the overwhelming. You know, nothing in life is really overwhelming. It's just normally because you've not dealt with something long enough that they've built up to a point where it feels overwhelming. So you have the choice: deal it with intensely and feel the fear intensely for a short burst, or feel it less intensely for a lot longer and start and allowing it to grow inside of you. You know, like taking over you and guiding your actions. That's a simple choice you have. So just remember that the next time you have to do something that scares you, like even now, actually, let's do it right now. What is something that you've got to do that scares you? What a conversation you need to have, a message you need to send, something you want to go for that you're scared to do. What is that? You know it. Yep. It's the first one, by the way. Don't try and change it because there'll be one that immediately came to you. That's the one to deal with. As soon as possible, take a step towards that. Feel the fear intensely, deal with it, and allow yourself to move forward and to change your relationship. Keep doing that, and you change your relationship to fear. And then, of course, when you change your relationship to fear, you change your relationship to life itself. It's a very cool mechanism. So, for those of you who want to not just change their relationship to fear, and want some support with training, with creating something extraordinary, I have my Becoming Superhuman training happening next year. This 4-month intensity is really hotting up. I was talking to an astronaut in training just before this, actually, and she was sharing some of the stuff that she's done through her training. And now there's a new piece that I'm adding into this program based upon what she shared. It's very, very cool. And she shared, now she's like a molecular biologist. She's a pilot. She's done astronaut training, all these cool things. And yet she said this single experience is the one that's changed her the most, that she felt the most different afterwards. And I'm going to bring that into this Superhuman training. So if you're interested in finding out some more details about that, please send me a private message. I'm collecting the names of the people who are, and then when they're ready, I'll send them over. And if you're really interested and serious about becoming superhuman, you can apply. It's very cool. It's like, what would life be like if you just did everything, said anything, did everything that you ever wanted to do, moment by moment, without restriction? What would life be like? And if you did that for years, what could your life become? That's what this program's about. If you're interested, send me a private message. Thank you for being here. If you have any questions, by the way, of any of this that you shared today, post them in the comments. I will come back, and I will see you on the next live. Take care.